Hello, everyone. This is Michael Justin Lee, the founder and president of the Ivy Dream. Welcome to another episode in Aspire, our podcast channel in which we talk with current students and recent graduates of the most elite university programs. Today, we are very happy to be joined by Kenzie Elizabeth, a recent graduate of the Master in Music program from New York University, the world's finest musical theater program. Kenzie, welcome to our podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Kenzie, we'd like to talk about a whole bunch of things from application to the academics there, and very importantly, what you're doing now. And for the most part, we'll move chronologically. Kenzie, may I ask for an introduction to yourself? Oh, not so much academically, but artistically from high school.
So I had done theater and music and dance, like performing arts, growing up from the age of like 3 to 5. But in high school, I did a lot of community theater. And I didn't really do any of the high school theater just because I had already established, like my mom was a choreographer and director at the local community theater. So I kind of was already established there. And so I did that throughout high school. And then at that point in time, I had already known that I wanted to pursue a career in the performing arts. And so I didn't quite understand the audition process for colleges. I just kind of thought you applied academically and then you just got in. And so I ended up doing a junior college in theater arts. I didn't really have to audition for it. I just submitted my academic information and then they approved me, and then I was just in those classes. But then I found out about auditions for American Musical and Dramatic Academy, which is like a conservatory program, and they have two different campuses. They have one in LA and one in New York. I auditioned for the LA campus, and I was originally going to finish out my AA at Sierra College, which was the junior college I went to. I was originally going to finish that out and then go to AMDA, but then AMDA was like, hey, you can actually start this upcoming summer. Do you want to do that, or do you want to wait? And I was like, let's do the summer. So I actually did not finish Sierra. I was only a couple of semesters away, but I went ahead and transferred those credits into AMDA's system. Did that conservatory for a little while. And at this point, I was not even 18 yet. So this was all between the ages of like 16, 17. And my 18th birthday was approaching. I had done 2 semesters at the LA campus, moved to the New York campus for like their 3rd semester experience. And then before going back to LA, I was having this kind of like, I wouldn't call it a crisis, but it was, I was turning 18. I was becoming an adult. It was like a whole new chapter in my life. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to go back to LA or if I wanted to do something different. And I ended up doing something completely different. I moved to Oregon, got my undergrad in acting, and that's where I actually finished my degree. I got my BFA in acting from Western Oregon University before NYU. So that was kind of like my education history from high school right before NYU.
Oh, that's very interesting. You did quite a bit even before most people start their freshman year in college.
Yeah, I ended up graduating high school at the end of my sophomore year because in California, they have this thing called the CHESP, which is the California High School Proficiency Exam, and it's above a GED, but it's essentially the senior final exam, but for anyone under the age group. And at that point in time, they allowed sophomores and up to take it. And so I took that test. I passed with an advance, and I was able to get my diploma. Essentially, I finished out my sophomore year. And then instead of going back for junior and senior year, I just went to JC.
Very interesting. Were you in a degree program at AMDA?
Yes, it was a BFA musical theater program.
To get into it, was there the same audition process as those who do not transfer in?
I believe so. Yeah, we went through. So I know that most musical, like BFA musical theater programs, have what's called a pre-screen, which is like the audition to get the audition for the school. AMDA did not have that. They just had, and I went to at that time, because it was in 2018, I just did an in-person audition that was locally. It was like in the Sacramento area. And then I heard back within a couple weeks. So I didn't have to go through like a pre-screen process and then a couple months later go through an in-person and then have another interview. It was very, very straightforward. It was just one audition. At the same day, we did like a little interview thing. It was like right after we sang, and then we heard back in a couple weeks.
Oh, interesting. Did they have an acting component to your audition?
I want to say so. I think we did a monologue. I'm pretty sure, but it was a while ago. So I don't know if they've changed it since. But I definitely know we had to prepare. I think 230. It was 232 bar cuts contrasting, and I'm pretty sure it was a monologue as well.
Uh-huh. Do you remember what musical pieces you selected?
I think at that time I was kind of obsessed with Dying Ain't So Bad from Bonnie and Clyde. So I think I might have brought that one in, but I honestly do not remember.
Okay. Let's talk about AMDA, one of the premier non-university conservatories. What do you feel you gained the most from your time at AMDA?
Um, I would say the long hour training. I think when you're in rehearsals for 8 hours a day in the professional world, like it's a job, right? And it requires a lot of stamina. Well, the classes themselves were not 8 hours long, but the days themselves were. So I would have class starting at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I would have mini breaks in between, but they were like compared to Western Oregon, I would have 2 hours in between each class. I would have like 20 minutes in between each class. Um, in my first semester at least. And so it really kind of prepped me for like, oh wow, like this is it's like a full 8 hour day. So I would have classes, and then after classes, I would have a little bit of a dinner break from like 4-ish to 6-ish. And then sometimes I would have a night class or I would have a rehearsal if I was a part of a production that was on campus. So it was the long hours. I think it really prepared me to like have that stamina for. And then I made some really, really wonderful connections. I'm still in contact with 90% of my professors, like currently to this day. I'm also still in contact with a lot of my peers from my classes, and they've gone on to do some really amazing things. And I've been able to not just be a part of it, a part of their journey, but I've been able to see it, which is really fun.
Was the curriculum academic?
No, it was not. In fact, they didn't even offer any academic scholarships. It was all performance based, which is
Oh,
one of the reasons I did end up leaving. I transferred is because I was very academic at the time and I knew that I could get a scholarship. And so that's why I went to Western Oregon, because I didn't want to graduate with a bunch of debt, which I went to NYU. So now I'm still in debt, but like, it's fine. That was for a master's degree. But yeah, there was like the academic classes, like the English comp they were all performance related. So like my English comp class, it was all like not writing typical undergraduate essays. It was all like having to do with your career or having to do with like business, or you know what I mean?
oh, very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Did you notice any difference in curriculum or teaching between their LA campus and the New York campus?
Yes. I feel like the New York campus, because there's no at that time, there was no BFA and there wasn't even an AA. I think they moved it to an AA recently. Um, it was just a certificate program. It was more rigorous, in my opinion. I felt like the classes were not necessarily longer, but they were just packed more. And I had more things to do, which I thrived in. I thrived with structure. I thrived with not having a lot of time to do anything outside of that. And so it worked for me. But I think in LA, I had more time to myself, as opposed to New York. I wake up, go to school, go to classes, and then I would go home and I wouldn't be able to watch really a TV show. I'd have to like memorize things or I'd have to work on material. Whereas LA, I had a little bit more flexibility.
Mhm, mhm. Were you in productions, student or otherwise, in either LA or New York?
I can't remember what semester it was, first or second, but I was in a play reading of Major Barbara with Leon
Major
Martell.
Barbara.
And
Really?
yeah, and it was fun. It wasn't like so we only had a couple weeks to put it up. And we didn't have like a full set. It was just kind of like a pretty minimalistic set. We had our music stands with us. We had the scripts on hand, like on the stage or in hand on the stage. But it was like a staged, like reading of the play. And that was a really cool experience because that was my first experience with like a person who had worked in the industry and who was still currently working in the industry. And then I was a part of like there's these like cafe series concerts where you would, in my case, I auditioned with like my original music, my original material. Some people would audition with monologues, some people would audition with comedy stuff. It was just like a little like open mic type thing, but with an audition process. And they were like mini concerts, and it was held at the cafe, which was cool. Um, and then in New York, I was a part of the dance workshop, which is actually where I met my now tap teacher. His name is Oren Korenblum. He was the choreographer for the tap workshop along with Jimmy Kitzler. And Oren Korenblum, after that workshop was done, I kept in touch with him, and he's my like go-to tap teacher now. And this is in 2024, and that was in 2019. So it's super cool, the connections that you make,
That's wonderful. Kenzie, in applying to AMDA, were they at all interested in the standard university applications, the SAT and the
No,
essay?
I don't think so. I never took my SAT. Yeah, so I didn't have to submit my scores, at least for AMDA, and then for Western, they didn't require it. So I'm not sure about. I know some other programs that are like more academic based. You have to have your SAT, but I didn't take my SAT, my ACT. I still got it.
Oh, interesting. What about the other parts of a typical university application? Essays and letters of recommendation, high school grades?
So high school GPA, I think you had to have at least a 3.0 for AMDA. It was either a 2.5 or 3.0 because they were so performance based. I believe I did submit a letter of recommendation, and I did do a personal like statement essay type thing. It wasn't like it wasn't a super long essay. That's why I said personal statement, because it was more of like a 1 or 2 page long thing. But it wasn't a whole lot of writing. I didn't have to compile a lot. It was more so you had to, in my case, it wasn't a virtual audition. It was like an in-person, so you had to prepare material to be considered.
Okay. Well, and then jumping forward a couple of years, you've got your BFA. What did you choose to do right after graduation?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I didn't think I was going to go to grad school for like a minimum of 5 to 10 years. So after I graduated Western, my plan was to, within the year, move to the city or nearby, start auditioning, hopefully get a job, a couple years later and go from there, right? Well, I started teaching voice in December, like November, December of 2021. And I was set to graduate with my BFA acting from Western in June of 22. When I started teaching a couple months into it, I wanted more of that like vocal pedagogy knowledge, so that way I can give my students more tools for success, as opposed to just kind of doing it based on my current knowledge. Because I wanted to access more voice. I wanted to teach more voices than just my own. And so I started looking for like summer programs. Between like February to May, I wanted to do like a 2 week intensive or a 1 week intensive or like a month intensive. I'm just like getting a certificate in vocal pedagogy or something along those lines. And I wasn't looking at schools at all. And at this point, I was still in my senior year of Western. I was still auditioning. At the same time, because I was like, okay, I want to go on tour, I want to do a regional production, stuff like that. And then I was also submitting for agencies for representation because I was self-represented at the time. So I was doing all of this, but I kind of had the mindset of, I'm just going to graduate and exist and maybe move to the city within the year.
Were you in LA or New York by then?
Well, I was in Oregon now. And yeah, I moved to Oregon in 2019 summer. I started my summer semester and I stayed there. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you might, after graduating from Oregon, that you might have moved New
Oh
York or
no, I'm
LA.
still in Oregon at this point. Still in my senior year. And then in May, I saw that NYU had extended their Masters of Musical Theater deadline. And the vocal pedagogy certificate drew, like, it kind of caught my attention, but it was closed. Like, I could not apply to that. But I thought to myself, well, it's a master's in vocal performance. And the curriculum is, you've got your voice lessons, it's like a true musical theater. You've got everything well rounded. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I can cater my voice lessons specific to myself, like having them give me some more vocal pedagogy tools. Or maybe, like, at this point, I didn't know that you couldn't audit, but I was thinking in my head, maybe I can audit a vocal pedagogy class, or like, a bunch of things were going in my head where I can, maybe extend a year and like get into the vocal pedagogy program afterwards. But I was like, I should apply even if I don't get in. And I truly did not think I was going to get into NYU. I was like, it's fine. Like, I'll just apply for the heck of it, right? And then I ended up getting in, and then I literally moved to New York as soon as, like, I graduated June of 22, and I moved to New York in August of that year, and I started my classes in September of that year.
Oh, no real time to adjust to the hustle and bustle of New York.
It's so interesting because it's now August of 2024, and I still haven't processed the fact that I have an undergraduate degree, let alone a master's degree.
That is something. Kenzie, what made you decide to get the MM, Master of Music, as opposed to an MFA at New York University?
Well, the MFA, there was no MFA in musical theater. I wanted musical theater because I missed the training that I had at AMDA. And so the only degree available was the Masters of Music in Vocal Performance, Music Theater. So that was just the degree that was offered. It was also the only one that was open when I applied. Because I applied in May. I didn't think I was going to school.
Oh, yes, that's right. You did fly late. Did you have to undergo the full application process that close to start of the semester?
Yeah, they had me submit a virtual audition. I submitted 3 vocal pieces. It was 2 contrasting musical theater cuts, and then 1 cut of like a classical piece. And then they didn't have me do an interview process though, which I thought was interesting because usually at this level they have you, even at AMDA I did an interview, but I think because it was so close, I submitted a really lengthy, I didn't just do a personal statement, I did like an essay, like I submitted a really lengthy thing. I submitted, the letters of recommendation were optional, but I submitted them anyway. I'm trying to think of what else I did. I think that was pretty much it. And then I got my acceptance like a few weeks later. It was not super long after.
Mm-hmm. Did you have to come to New York for those the audition?
Nope, I filmed it in my living room in Oregon.
Oh, that's right. It was virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what specifically you chose to audition with?
Yes, I do actually. Follow Your Heart from Urinetown. Mm-hmm. Quiet it's from like an album called 13 Stories Down by Jonathan Reed-Gilt. And then my classical piece was Say Tu Mami. I forget the composer.
Uh-huh. Let's jump forward. You're now at NYU. You're in the hustle and bustle of New York. And obviously, now you're at the graduate level. But other than that, the things you were learning, did you find it very different from all your previous training?
It wasn't drastically different, but I was treated like more of a colleague as opposed to a student.
Interesting.
It is honestly quite lovely. I think when you're a student, there's that it's like a power dynamic, which is not bad or good. It's just kind of there, right? In the class setting at the graduate level, at least in my experience, yes, there was still that oh, you're grading my stuff, or oh, I have to do the curriculum, right? But there was an understanding between the student and the teacher that you were, even though there was that slight power dynamic because they are your teacher, you still have to respect them. But at the same time, it was a level playing field, which I felt allowed me to expand on my growth as opposed to feeling stressed out because I have to impress the teacher. It was like a
Hmm.
very safe space to learn and grow as a community and as a full unit, as opposed to like trying to do good.
Hmm. Hmm. What were your favorite areas? I'm not asking specific courses actually, because I want to be more general than that. General areas in which you really loved your learning at NYU.
Um, I don't really have a favorite. I loved every single thing I did here
Mm.
pretty equally. I think all the teachers that I had in particular, I connected well with, I vibed well with. I feel like I found myself growing after every single time I was in a room with my classmates or my teacher. Um, And I think every area is so different. Like we were doing different mediums. So like your voice lessons, that accesses a whole nother part of your body as opposed to song analysis, where you're like dissecting music and putting it in your body and like that acting through song. Or the dance classes is a very different medium. Or, music theory is a very different medium. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
I loved everything as a whole. I don't really have a favorite.
Mhm. In terms of your acting classes, what style of acting did they focus on?
Um, well, it was a mix of things. So we started off with like monologues, like contemporary. We hit on contemporary. We hit on some Shakespeare, like classical stuff if we wanted. We hit on Meisner technique, Stanislavski technique. Um, the graduate level only gets 1 out of the 2 years in song analysis, acting, and dance classes. The following year is like recital prep and showcase prep, where you have the opportunity to add on, you can add on other classes if you want, but like the curriculum itself, it's like you're not required to take any of that. So we only got grad acting 1 and grad acting 2 because it was 2 semesters.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it could only fit so much into that time frame.
Indeed, indeed. Was summer part of the regular program?
No. In fact, a
Okay.
lot of classes aren't even offered in the summer.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
What did you do in terms of making a use of the New York artistic community?
Are you talking about like at NYU or like outside of school?
Oh, both, really. I think I can assume that you would have been fully engaged at your school's activities. But how did you mm, engage with the larger artistic community of New
Yeah,
York?
I continued my content creation that I started in 2020. I continued that, and that connected me with some lovely people in New York City. I In terms of like the school side, like NYU, I made sure that I used the practice rooms as much as possible. So that way, one, it would save me money. That way, I wouldn't have to go to like a rehearsal space in the city, which are lovely. They're great, but they cost. They're not free, right? The rehearsal spaces here at the school are free. So anytime I had to practice something or rehearse something or use a space or do a self tape, I would try to do it at my school first. Um, this is such a loaded question because the graduate program for me at least, I felt comfortable working in addition to classes. And so I've consistently held down 3 different jobs for the last couple of years. I work at a running shoe store, which is a lovely community because it's like an actual, like I have to learn all about injuries and different technologies of shoes and stuff like that. And so I'm like actively in that community. But that was nice for the dance side because I figured out, a lot of anatomical things that I could use in the dancing side. And then I teach voice still. And then I dog walk and dog sit, which I think is a really flexible way to earn income, but also still do auditions. And I was also doing auditions at the time. I ended up signing with an agent my second year here. So like I've been able to like be a member of society outside of school, even through the grad program, which is something I would not be able to do in the undergrad program, and I was not able to do in my undergrad at Western or AMA.
Oh, that's wonderful. Kenzie, how did you wind up obtaining representation?
So I started applying for agents or like auditioning, submitting for agents in 2021. I never heard anything, submitted it, and you can only, for some agencies, they will only let you apply once for the year. Some agencies, they'll allow you twice for the year. But I would apply. I applied to everyone I could think of. 2021, heard nothing. 2022, heard nothing. 2023, I applied for everything that I had already applied for, but Movement Talent Agency in particular. I applied for them in March because they had put out a kind of like a call saying that they're looking for musical theater representation in the New York City area. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my chance. This is great. So I sent an email. I heard nothing until around June, July. I got an email saying that I was moving forward with a phone interview. And that phone interview wasn't even until September. So it was a long process of just like waiting. And then I had my phone call and it went wonderful. And I ended up signing with them. And I've been with Movement Talent Agency ever since September. And oh my gosh, it's coming up on a year. What? Crazy. Oh wait, that's so exciting. No, I love them. They're great. I feel like I'm seen with them in terms of like they see me for a person rather than just like a machine trying to do work, you know? And so they're actively fighting for me in the room, like with the casting teams and stuff, which is great. Um, but yeah, it was a long process. Like I had started applying in 2021. I didn't even actually get any response until 2023.
Kenzie, have you found that your representation has helped you in your training?
No, not really. I think you can succeed in this industry with or without an agent. I think an agent is a wonderful tool to like get you seen for appointments. Appointments were really big for me because I personally, it doesn't fit in my lifestyle to wait 4 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours to hopefully be seen for a project. I value my time a little bit more. Not to say that there's nothing wrong with that. It's for some people, they value that as opposed to other things, and that's totally fine. I just didn't work with my lifestyle because I was doing just too many things during the week. And so I was missing out on a lot of different opportunities because I chose not to go to those open calls, or I chose not to go to, put my name up on a list at 6 in the morning to hopefully get seen a few hours later. And so when I got my agent, it really changed the game in the sense of I was actually getting appointments now, and like I'm still non-equity. And so I'm still, there's still that like equity gets seen before the non-ex, and that's totally fine. It's just the way the system is. Um, but it allowed me to like get seen for more, and I actually have someone like I feel like I fight for myself really well, but it's nice to have someone fighting with me and like advocating for me, you know?
Yes, indeed. Kenzie, you now have an undergraduate degree in acting, a graduate degree in musical theater. In what ways are you continuing your training?
Yeah, so I don't plan on doing any more degree programs at all. However, I at some point want to teach like a performing arts specific college. Probably here in the city because I don't ever want to leave the city. I think this is my home forever. Not necessarily like right in the middle of Manhattan itself forever, but I think being in a commutable distance to the city it's my home. It's where I feel most connected. So I want to teach it like maybe NYU at some day. I know one of my teachers, she went here and then now she's teaching here full time. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, my goal is to use those degrees. Hence why I also got a master's degree because the difference in pay, it's important to me.
Kenzie, did you obtain what you sought to obtain from NYU?
Yes. I knew what the curriculum was. I saw it and it was that to a T plus more. I got so much more out of it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Kenzie, what suggestions would you have for other people interested in the MM program in NYU in preparation to starting it?
I think it's important to choose like when you're prepping for the audition and you're prepping for like submitting your materials and whatnot. I think it's important to go in with like your true self. Pick material that you love. Pick material that is going to showcase something from you that nobody else would see without you singing it or without you doing the material. Because if you do what you love, then you're not going to be as burnt out. And that also goes for when you actually start the program. Finding the little joys, even if it like gets a little difficult or even if it's like challenging, finding bits and pieces that you enjoy will make the burnout process null. Like it'll get rid of it or hopefully slow it down. And also prioritize mental health. Mental health is just as important as physical health. And so in addition to like taking care of your body physically, like make sure you get your sleep, drink your water. If you need to take a mental health day, take a mental health day. Like this industry is a lot more forgiving than I think a lot of conservatory programs make them out to be or make it out to be. And so at the graduate level, again, like I was saying previously, you're treated more of as an equal as opposed to a student in quotations. And so just communicate, I think is the biggest thing.
Wonderful, wonderful advice indeed. Kenzie, let's move out a few decades. What would be your definition of success?
That's a very loaded question, but I'll answer very simply. Being authentic.
That is a great answer. Absolutely. And I absolutely agree with it also in whatever field one goes into.
Mm-hmm.
Kenzie, I'd like to thank you so very much for being with us. You've taught us a lot about the application process for conservatory, about the education that you get there, and now what life will be like for a performing artist in New York. So once again, Kenzie, I'd like to thank you. And to our audience, we have been with Kenzie Elizabeth, a recent graduate with a Master's of Music from NYU. We hope that you've gained a lot from what Kenzie has shared with us.
Thank you so much.